Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. The engine coughed again, sending violent shudders through the de Havilland Beaver's frame. My heart raced as I watched the oil pressure gauge dropping rapidly into the red. At 3,000 feet over the Alaskan wilderness, this was about as bad as it could get. Mayday, Mayday, this is November 37 Oscar Charlie. Engine failure. Attempting emergency landing near Yakutat. Does anyone copy? Static filled my headset. The radio had been dead for hours, offering nothing but scattered fragments of panic from the lower 48. Through the windscreen, I could see Yakutat's small cluster of buildings nestled between the Gulf of Alaska and the towering St. Elias Mountains. The town's landing strip was a flat patch carved out of the wilderness, normally an easy approach, but not with a failing engine and winter darkness creeping in. The oil pressure dropped to zero. The engine's steady rumble transformed into a sickening metallic grinding. I had maybe 2 minutes of power left. If I was lucky, my hands moved automatically through the emergency checklist drilled into my brain through 20 years of bush flying. Fuel cutoff, mixture to lean, radio call, though that seemed pointless now. Below me, something seemed off about Yakutat. The streets were empty, and I could see vehicles abandoned at odd angles. No lights shone from any windows despite the approaching dusk. The small fishing boats that usually dotted the harbor were either missing or drifting aimlessly. The engine gave one final shudder and went silent. The sudden quiet was deafening, broken only by the whistle of wind over the wings. I trimmed the aircraft for the best glide speed, my mind racing through calculations. Distance, wind speed, descent rate. I'd make the runway, but just barely. As I lined up for final approach, movement caught my eye. A group of people were staggering across the runway, their motions jerky and unnatural. Even from this height, something about them seemed wrong. The way they moved reminded me of injured animals, driven purely by instinct. "Clear the runway," I shouted uselessly into the dead radio. The figures showed no sign of noticing the aircraft descending toward them. If anything, they seemed to be drawn to the sound of my approach, more emerging from between buildings to join the group. At 500 feet, I could see them more clearly. Their clothes were torn and stained dark. Some were missing limbs. One woman's head lolled at an impossible angle, yet she kept walking. My blood ran cold as I remembered the fragments of news I'd caught over the past few days. Reports of violence, of a disease that turned people feral. I had no choice. The Beaver was coming down whether I wanted it to or not. I aimed for the far end of the runway, past the group of whatever they were. The wheels touched down hard, the impact jarring my teeth. I fought the controls, trying to keep the aircraft straight as it rolled toward the gathered figures. They didn't scatter. Instead, they turned as one and began shambling toward me, arms outstretched. Their faces, dear God, their faces. Gray skin pulled tight over bones, milky eyes vacant of anything human, jaws snapping with mindless hunger. The Beaver slowed near the end of the runway, still rolling too fast to safely stop. Ahead, a small taxiway led to a fenced maintenance area. I cranked the yoke hard, tires screaming in protest as I swerved onto the taxiway. The fence was chain link, sturdy enough to keep animals out, but nothing that would stop an aircraft. I burst through the fence, the metallic shriek of tearing chain link adding to the chaos. The Beaver finally shuddered to a stop near a hangar, its nose buried in a snowbank. Behind me, I could hear them coming, shuffling footsteps and inhuman moans growing closer. My hand shook as I reached for the .44 Magnum on my hip. Standard equipment for bush pilots, usually meant for bears rather than this. The cargo hold was full of supplies meant for Point Hope: food, medicine, ammunition. If I could reach the hangar, maybe I could. A body slammed against the pilot's side window, making me jump. It was a man in an airport worker's uniform, his throat torn open, black fluid leaking from the wound. His dead eyes fixed on me as he clawed at the plexiglass, leaving dark smears with each strike. More figures emerged from behind the hangar, drawn by the sound of my crash. I was trapped in the cockpit, surrounded by the infected. The Alaskan wilderness had always been dangerous, but now it had become something else entirely. A hunting ground. And I was prey. The sun sank lower behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the runway. In the gathering darkness, I could hear more of them coming. The night would be long, and I had decisions to make. Hard decisions about survival in a world that had suddenly gone mad. I checked my watch, 6:47 p.m. Just 12 hours ago, I'd been in Anchorage, loading supplies and joking with the ground crew. Now those same streets were probably overrun, just like every other city I'd heard about on the radio. The infection had reached Alaska, the last frontier, and I was about to find out just how prepared I really was for survival. The infected pressed against the Beaver's windows, their ceaseless pounding echoing through the cockpit. I had my .44 ready, but discharging it in such a confined space would be catastrophic. The blast would deafen me and attract more of them. The temperature plummeted as darkness engulfed Yakutat, each exhale crystallizing in the cramped space. A sharp crack echoed across the airfield. One of the infected battering my window suddenly slumped, a precise hole through its temple. More shots followed, methodical and exact. The creatures toppled one after another, their forms crumpling into the snow with muffled impacts. "Hey, pilot! When I give the signal, make for the hangar, northwest corner." A woman's voice carried across the tarmac, commanding and resolute. Through the windscreen, I glimpsed movement on the hangar roof. 3 figures in prone positions, their rifles tracking the area around my aircraft. I gripped the door handle, muscles tense to move. The remaining infected began turning toward the gunfire, drawn by the sounds. Another series of shots rang out, felling more of them. "Now! Go!" I thrust the door open and launched myself out of the cockpit, boots breaking through the fresh snow. The bitter cold sliced through my clothing as I sprinted toward the hangar. Behind me, the wet sounds of pursuing infected and their inhuman vocalizations spurred me faster. A side door opened in the hangar's northwest corner. A man in heavy winter gear gestured urgently. "This way, quick!" I dove through the doorway as another volley of shots covered my retreat. The door clanged shut behind me, heavy bolts sliding home. My lungs burned as I caught my breath, the sudden transition from flight to safety making my legs unsteady. "Welcome to the last secure location in Yakutat," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel Pierce, former Coast Guard. The shooters up top are Rachel Morgan, Linda Cooper, and Tom Reed, local hunting guides. They're the finest marksmen in town." The hangar had been transformed into a defensive position. Metal shelving created barriers near the windows, stocked with provisions. A small wood stove provided warmth and illumination, its chimney carefully vented through a roof panel. In one corner, radio equipment hummed quietly, scanning frequencies. "How many survivors?" I asked, still regulating my breathing. 11 total, Daniel replied. "Most of the town succumbed before we understood what was happening. The infection spread rapidly. Those who didn't turn immediately attempted escape by boat. That ended badly." Footsteps on the metal stairs announced the arrival of the shooting team. Rachel Morgan, a tall woman with graying hair and weathered features, stepped forward. "We watched you circle for landing. Recognized the engine failure from the sound. Figured anyone still airborne might have supplies worth retrieving." I nodded. "Full cargo hold. Medical supplies, food, ammunition, all destined for Point Hope. But without an engine, that bird's grounded." "We can retrieve your cargo," Tom said, checking his rifle. "But we'll need to move tonight. Those things grow sluggish in extreme cold, and we've got a storm approaching. Weather Service confirmed it this morning before going silent. It's going to be severe." Linda moved to a table covered in maps and blueprints. "The immediate concern is the noise we generated. Those shots will attract more infected from town. We need to act quickly to secure that plane." Daniel outlined the plan. Tom and Linda would maintain covering fire from the roof. Rachel would lead a team to the aircraft. Me, Daniel, and 2 other survivors named Mike and Anna. We'd create a chain to transfer the cargo efficiently while watching each other's backs. "What about the Beaver itself?" I asked. "Even grounded, then it's worth protecting." The radio still functions, and it's shelter if conditions worsen. Rachel nodded. We've got chains and a pickup with a plow. If we can clear a path, we might be able to tow it closer to the hangar. But first, let's retrieve those supplies. We equipped ourselves swiftly. Each person received specific assignments and weaponry. Rachel handed me a shotgun to complement my revolver. Target the head, she instructed. Body shots waste ammunition. They don't register pain, don't bleed out. Destroying the brain is the only effective method. The hangar's side door opened again. The frigid air assaulted us as we moved out in formation. The infected we'd eliminated earlier lay scattered across the snow, dark fluid freezing into grotesque patterns around their bodies. More shapes lurched between buildings, drawn by our previous gunfire. We reached the Beaver without incident. The cargo door had frozen shut, the metal contracting in the cold. It took both Daniel and me pulling to break it free. Inside, the carefully secured cargo waited. We formed our chain, passing boxes and bags swiftly but quietly. A sound like shattering glass echoed from the direction of town. Rachel raised her fist, our signal to halt. Through the encroaching darkness, we spotted more infected emerging between buildings, a substantial number. "Work faster," Rachel whispered. "We've got 2 minutes before they reach us." We accelerated our pace, muscles straining with the effort. The infected closed in, their movements becoming more agitated as they detected prey. The first shots crackled from the roof, Tom and Linda eliminating the nearest threats. An infected woman in a postal uniform suddenly sprinted, moving faster than the others. Rachel's rifle barked, and the creature collapsed. But more approached. Many more. 30 seconds, Rachel called. Secure the final items and retreat. Daniel and I grabbed the last loads, heavy boxes of ammunition. As we turned to withdraw, a massive figure materialized behind the Beaver's tail. It was a man who must have stood 7 feet tall in life, wearing shredded hunting gear. His chest cavity gaped open, revealing frozen organs beneath. Before anyone could react, the giant infected lunged for Anna. Her scream pierced the air as massive hands seized her shoulders. I dropped the ammunition and raised my shotgun, but the angle threatened to hit them both. Daniel acted instantly. He tackled the infected, driving his hunting knife up under its jaw. Both figures crashed into the snow. The giant's grip released Anna, but now its hands sought Daniel. Rachel's rifle spoke 3 times. The giant's head disintegrated in a spray of frozen tissue. Daniel rolled clear, covered in dark fluid but unharmed. "Fall back, now," Rachel commanded. We sprinted for the hangar, covering fire protecting our retreat. The infected horde converged from all directions, their collective moans rising above the gunfire. We reached the door just as the first snowflakes descended. Inside, we immediately organized the supplies while Tom and Linda maintained watch from above. The radio equipment suddenly crackled with life, startling everyone. "This is Coast Guard Station Sitka," a voice emerged through heavy static. "Any survivors in southeast Alaska? Be advised. Major storm approaching. All rescue operations suspended. Maintain shelter in place. Repeat, maintain shelter in place." The transmission died, leaving us in silence. Through the hangar's high windows, the snowfall intensified. Soon a full blizzard would engulf us. Rachel checked her rifle and turned to me. "That plane of yours, how determined are you to preserve it?" I surveyed the gathered survivors, each prepared to risk everything again. "With a storm incoming and no rescue forthcoming, we'll need every advantage available. Let's get that plow truck and bring her in." The night was far from over, and we had work to do. The blizzard descended on Yakutat like a ravenous beast, devouring the landscape in sheets of white. The plow truck's diesel engine grumbled against the bitter cold as our team worked to secure heavy chains to the Beaver's landing gear. Daniel, now encased in layers of Arctic gear, wrestled with frozen metal links while keeping watch on our perimeter. "This storm's different," Rachel murmured, her rifle sweeping the curtain of white beyond our floodlit workspace. "The way it's moving in, haven't seen anything like it since '98. The industrial floodlights cast stark shadows across the tarmac, creating shifting patterns that kept us all on edge. Linda and Tom maintained overwatch from the hangar roof, though visibility deteriorated with each passing minute. Their rifles punctuated the howling wind periodically, each shot followed by the muffled thud of another infected collapsing into deepening snowdrifts. "Chains secured," Daniel announced, his words crystallizing instantly in the Arctic air. "Mike, position the plow. Anna, guide him from the passenger side. One shot at this before we lose all visibility." The plow truck's tires struggled for purchase on the ice before finding grip. Mike eased it backward, following Anna's hand signals through the thickening snowfall. The intensifying storm proved both blessing and curse. Its roar masked our activity, but also concealed any approaching threats. A piercing scream shattered the relative quiet, unmistakably human, filled with raw terror. It originated somewhere in the darkened town. "Hold positions," Rachel commanded, her tone brooking no argument. "We can't help them, not now." The scream terminated abruptly, replaced by sounds that turned my stomach. The wind carried the unmistakable copper scent of fresh blood. "Contact, 2 o'clock, Linda's voice crackled through our radios. "Group of 6, possibly 7, following the blood scent." The swirling snow parted, revealing dark silhouettes. They moved with that distinctive broken fluidity that marked the infected. One dragged a mangled leg through the snow, leaving a dark trail. Another advanced on all fours like some primordial predator, spine contorted at an unnatural angle. "Need 10 minutes to recover this aircraft," Daniel said, checking his rifle's magazine. "Can you buy us that time?" Rachel's answer came as a single shot, dropping the quadrupedal infected mid-crawl. 9 minutes, 50 seconds, make them count." Our work accelerated to a frenzied pace. Mike inched the plow truck forward, taking up slack in the chains. The beaver's nose lifted from its snowbank prison with a metallic protest. More infected materialized from the storm, drawn by our movements. 7 minutes, Rachel announced between precise shots. "Northwest group closing. Ammunition running critical." The beaver slid across the icy tarmac, its dead weight fighting us every inch. The aircraft's wings scraped against the hangar's exterior with an ear-splitting shriek of metal on metal. 5 minutes. Multiple contacts, all quadrants. The storm thinned momentarily, revealing dozens of infected converging through the darkness. Their clouded eyes reflected our work lights with an animalistic gleam. Some wore tattered winter clothing, while others displayed grievous wounds that should have rendered movement impossible. All advanced with singular purpose. 3 minutes. Tom, Linda, withdraw to secondary positions. Perimeter breach imminent. The infected reached our outer floodlight perimeter, just as the beaver's tail cleared the hangar threshold. Mike gunned the plow truck's engine, chains screaming as they dragged the aircraft the final distance. "Inside, now!" Daniel bellowed. We abandoned our positions and sprinted for the hangar entrance. The infected broke into uneven runs, their collective moans rising above the storm's fury. Rachel provided covering fire, each round finding its mark despite the chaos. The hangar doors began rolling shut, electric motors straining against the cold. An infected, clad in commercial fishing gear, slipped through the narrowing gap. Anna met it with a fire axe, the blade cleaving through its skull. More tried following, grasping hands reaching through the diminishing space. The doors sealed with a resounding clang, massive bolts engaging automatically. Outside, the infected hurled themselves against the metal barrier, creating a rhythmic percussion of impacts. "Status check," Daniel ordered, examining each of us for injuries. Any wounds, any blood exposure, no matter how small. We shook our heads, still catching our breath. The beaver occupied the hangar's center, melting snow creating expanding puddles beneath its wings. At least now we had a backup shelter and functioning radio. Rachel approached me, her expression grim. "That scream earlier? Emily Parker, from the research facility. She tried reaching us with critical information." "Medical supplies?" I asked. "No data." She worked with the CDC's field office. Said she discovered something about the infection's transmission vector. Something that changes everything we thought we knew. Before she could elaborate, the radio equipment erupted with a burst of static. A mechanical voice cut through the white noise. "Emergency alert system. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. All civilian air traffic is grounded effective immediately. Military containment protocols are now in effect for Alaska. Any unauthorized aircraft detected will be shot down without warning. This is not a test. The message cycled, its automated delivery echoing through our shelter. We exchanged glances, the weight of our isolation settling like a physical presence. The storm intensified outside, while somewhere in the darkness, Emily Parker's final discovery about the infection died with her, and the night stretched endlessly before us. Dawn brought no relief from the storm, but it did reveal a pressing truth. We needed answers. While Mike and Linda had already begun assessing the Beaver's engine damage, Rachel proposed a dangerous alternative to waiting. The CDC research facility is less than 2 miles from here, she said, spreading a local map across our makeshift command table. If Emily Parker discovered something crucial about this infection, her notes might still be there. Daniel studied the route. 2 miles through infected territory, in a blizzard. That's a suicide run. Not necessarily, I interjected, examining the map. The storm's working in our favor. The infected seem sluggish in extreme cold, and visibility's poor enough to mask our movement. If we go now, we might make it. Rachel nodded. 3-person team, fast and quiet. The rest maintain the hangar and work on the aircraft. Tom stepped forward, checking his rifle. I'm in. Best shot besides Rachel, and I know the facility's layout. My sister worked security there. The facility loomed ahead through the whiteout conditions, a 3-story concrete structure partially obscured by drifting snow. The cold had become a living thing, biting through our layers of winter gear. Every breath created ice crystals in my beard. Rachel took point, her rifle ready while Tom and I watched our flanks. We encountered our first infected barely 50 yards from the facility's main entrance, a security guard frozen solid in his booth, his radio still crackling with static. The building's front doors hung open, snow accumulating in the lobby. Power's out, Tom whispered, switching on his flashlight. Emergency generators should have kicked in. The beam revealed signs of chaos. Overturned furniture, blood smears leading down corridors, papers scattered everywhere. But no bodies. The infected never left bodies. We moved deeper into the facility, following signs toward the research wing. The temperature inside wasn't much higher than outside, our footsteps crunching on frozen tiles. Every shadow concealed potential threats. A distant crash made us freeze. Something large was moving through the building, and it wasn't human. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the corridors, followed by inhuman snarls and the wet sounds of tearing flesh. There, Tom breathed, pointing his light down a side hallway. Through a shattered window, we glimpsed something massive in the adjacent room. A brown bear, easily 9 feet tall, standing upright. It had an infected pinned beneath one massive paw, its claws tearing through frozen flesh like paper. More infected lay scattered around it, truly dead this time. The cold's driving predators into buildings, Rachel murmured. At least the bear's on our side. We skirted the area carefully, acutely aware that an adult brown bear was far more dangerous than any number of infected. The sounds of its feast covered our movement as we located the research wing. Emily Parker's office was on the 2nd floor. The door bore signs of desperate defense, deep scratches in the wood, a chair wedged under the handle. Inside, the scene told its own story. Blood stained the desk where she'd made her last stand. Her computer lay shattered on the floor, but pinned to a bulletin board, partially hidden behind a fallen shelf, we found what we were looking for. Pages of research notes, observations, and most critically, a letter addressed to the CDC headquarters in Atlanta. Look at this, Rachel said, her voice tight. The letter's contents confirmed our worst fears. Strain shows unprecedented rates of mutation. Original samples from Department of Defense Arctic Research Site. Containment protocols completely inadequate. Infection vector not solely transmission through bites as initially theorized. Recommend immediate worldwide alert. The rest was illegible, damaged by water and blood. But scattered among Emily's other notes, a pattern emerged. references to military biological research, failed containment protocols, and most disturbingly, similar outbreaks occurring simultaneously across the globe. A tremendous roar shook the building. The bear had found new prey, and judging by the sounds of combat, the infected were swarming it in numbers. "Time to go," Tom urged, stuffing the most relevant papers into his pack. We retraced our steps, moving faster now. The bear's fight had drawn every infected in the building, giving us a clear path to the exit. But as we reached the lobby, Rachel stopped suddenly. "Wait," she whispered, pointing to a wall of security monitors, some still functioning on backup power. The screens showed other CDC facilities across the country: Atlanta, Denver, San Francisco. All displayed the same scenes of chaos we'd witnessed here. This wasn't isolated. This was everywhere. The journey back to the hangar was a blur of wind-driven snow and constant vigilance. We arrived to find the others had made progress with the Beaver. The engine damage was repairable with parts scavenged from other aircraft in the hangar. As our group gathered to discuss the findings, the implications settled over us like a physical weight. We had a choice to make: stay in our fortified hangar with its supplies and relative safety, or risk everything to find answers. The Beaver could fly again, but where would we go? The infection had spread worldwide. The military was shooting down civilian aircraft, and winter was deepening. The radio crackled with another automated warning about restricted airspace, but beneath it, we caught fragments of other transmissions, scattered groups of survivors, isolated pockets of humanity trying to understand what was happening. Some mentioned safe zones, others spoke of government bunkers and research facilities that might hold answers. Daniel voiced what we were all thinking. We can't be the only ones looking for the truth about this thing. There have to be others out there trying to piece it together. Rachel studied Emily's salvaged notes. These are just fragments. The real answers are still out there, probably scattered across multiple facilities just like this one. Each piece of the puzzle. The choice loomed before us. The hangar offered security but also stagnation. The Beaver promised mobility, but with it came enormous risk. Outside, the storm continued to rage, and somewhere in the darkness the bear roared its defiance at the infected horde. We had survived this long. Now we had to decide what surviving meant. Midnight brought the attack we'd been expecting. The infected emerged from the blizzard in waves, their movements significantly slowed by the negative 40-degree temperatures. Our hangar, a structure designed to withstand the harshest Alaskan conditions, stood as our fortress. "They're moving slower than usual," Daniel observed from his position on the elevated maintenance catwalk. "The extreme cold's affecting their muscle control." We'd spent hours preparing our defenses, using the hangar's industrial design to our advantage. The building's steel-reinforced walls and limited access points made it naturally defensible. We'd created choke points using heavy machinery and storage containers, setting up elevated firing positions on the catwalks and maintenance platforms. Rachel coordinated our defense from the central observation point. "Remember your sectors. Don't waste ammunition on body shots. Wait until you have a clear headshot." The infected gathered at the main hangar doors, but the industrial-grade steel held firm against their uncoordinated assault. These doors were designed to withstand Arctic gales. The infected couldn't generate enough force to breach them. Our first real test came at the personnel entrance, where their constant pressure eventually forced the door's frame to bend. Tom spotted it first from his elevated position. "Movement at the side door," he called out. "Frame's starting to give." Rather than trying to hold an increasingly compromised position, Rachel implemented our prepared fallback strategy. "Let them in. Control their entry point." We'd set up a kill zone just inside that entrance, a corridor formed by steel containers with elevated firing positions at both ends. As the door finally gave way, the infected were forced to funnel through this narrow space. "Hold fire," Rachel commanded as the first infected stumbled through. "Wait until we have a group." The infected's reduced mobility in the extreme cold worked to our advantage. They moved with jerky, uncoordinated motions, their frozen joints creaking audibly. When a dozen had entered the kill zone, Rachel gave the signal. "Light them up!" From our elevated positions, we had clear shots down into the corridor. The infected couldn't climb or move quickly enough to reach us. Every round found its mark, the sound of gunfire echoing through the hangar's steel interior. Linda's voice crackled over the radio from her position watching the exterior cameras. More coming from the north side. At least 30, moving slow. They'll try the loading bay next, Daniel predicted. Those doors are older. He was right. The loading bay doors began to rattle as the infected pressed against them. But we'd prepared for this too. The bay area was divided into sections by parked ground equipment and cargo containers, creating a maze that would split up large groups. The infected that made it through had to navigate these obstacles, while exposed to fire from multiple elevated positions. Their lack of coordination made them easy targets as they stumbled through our prepared kill zones. Hours passed. The blizzard intensified outside, the wind howling through any gaps in the structure. But the hangar's industrial heating system kept us functional, while the infected grew increasingly sluggish in the cold. By dawn, the attack had largely spent itself. Dozens of infected lay motionless in our kill zones, taken down with carefully placed shots. Our ammunition reserves, while depleted, weren't exhausted thanks to our disciplined fire control. "Building secure," Rachel announced after a thorough check. The infrastructure held. Even where they broke through, the basic structure wasn't compromised. She was right. The hangar had proven itself a natural fortress. Its steel construction, elevated walkways, and industrial-grade doors made it defensible even against large numbers. With proper planning and discipline, we could hold this position indefinitely. Looking at the partially repaired Beaver, I knew what needed to happen next. The hangar's secure, but we still need answers. Once I get the engine running, I'm going to search for other survivors, other facilities that might know what caused this. Daniel nodded. The hangar's proved itself. We can hold here, build up supplies again, make it a real stronghold. I'll come back, I promised. This place is a fortress, exactly what we need in this world. But first, we need to understand what we're fighting. There must be other facilities like the CDC outpost, other pieces of this puzzle. The others would stay, further reinforce the hangar, maybe even start expanding our safe zone. The building's design and our defensive strategies had proven effective. They could hold out here for months, maybe even years with proper supply management. The Beaver would be ready to fly in 2 days. Somewhere out there were answers about the infection's origin, and I meant to find them. Then I'd return with more supplies, more ammunition, and hopefully, a way to end this nightmare. The storm finally beginning to clear. Through the hangar's windows, I could see the infected in the killing cold, disappearing into what remained of the town. They'd be back, but now we knew with certainty this fortress could withstand them. The battle for the hangar was over, proving what we could accomplish with proper planning and coordination. But the wider war, the search for truth, was just beginning.